The war was over, but George S. Patton was just getting started. He had survived the bullets of the Kaiser's army. He had dodged Nazi shells across North Africa and Sicily. He was the most feared Allied general on the planet. And then, on a quiet Sunday morning in occupied Germany, a stray truck ended it all. Or did it? History tells us it was a freak accident, a low-speed collision. No one else was hurt, only Patton. But what if I told you that 24 hours before that crash, a secret order was signed by Dwight D. Eisenhower, a document that effectively turned Patton from a hero into a target? Why did the man who crushed the Third Reich suddenly become a liability to his own government? And more importantly, why was Joseph Stalin the only person smiling when the news broke? Ask yourself, if you were in charge of a fragile peace, would you sacrifice your greatest warrior to prevent a Third World War? Today, we go inside the forbidden diaries. We look at the last order, and we ask the question the Pentagon has avoided for 80 years. Was Patton killed by a truck or by a signature? Patton wasn't a politician, he was a predator. By May 1945, his Third Army was a juggernaut. He wanted to keep going. He wanted Berlin. He wanted Prague. But Washington told him to stop. Patton was furious. To him, the Soviet Union wasn't a brave ally. It was the next great enemy. In his private diaries, he wrote, "We have defeated the wrong enemy." Think about that for a second. The ashes of the Holocaust were still warm, and Patton was already calling for a new war. He didn't just want to contain Stalin. He wanted to crush him before he had the atomic bomb. But here is the problem. Eisenhower was trying to build a new world order, a world of diplomacy, a world of handshakes with Moscow. Patton's big mouth was ruining everything. He was calling Soviet generals SOBs to their faces. He was refusing to denazify his sector because he wanted to use German soldiers to fight the Russians. Would you call this vision, or was it pure madness? To Eisenhower, it was a diplomatic nightmare. To Stalin, it was a declaration of war. Stalin was a chess player. He didn't fear the American government. He knew how to talk to politicians. He knew how to stall. But he feared George Patton. To Stalin, Patton was a wild card, a man who didn't wait for orders from Washington, a man who believed he was a reincarnated Roman general. The Soviet intelligence, the NKVD, was obsessed with him. Their reports were clear. Patton was openly discussing the rearming of German panzer divisions to strike the East. Imagine that for a moment. The Red Army had just lost 20 million people to defeat the Nazis. And now, the most aggressive American general wanted to give those same Nazis their tanks back. Stalin was paranoid. But was he wrong? In Moscow, the Patton problem was discussed at the highest levels. To the Soviets, Patton wasn't just a general. He was a ticking time bomb that could blow up the fragile peace at any second. Ask yourself, if you were Stalin and you saw a legendary general building an army on your border, would you wait for him to attack? Or would you make sure he never left Germany alive? The Kremlin needed Patton gone, and they weren't the only ones. December 9th, 1945. A clear day, but for Patton, the fog was closing in. He was supposed to go hunting, a simple trip to clear his head before leaving for the United States. He was going home to tell the truth, to tell the American people what was really happening in Europe. He never made it. At a quiet intersection, a massive military truck parked on the side of the road suddenly lurched forward. It didn't speed. It didn't lose control. It turned directly into the path of Patton's car. It was a low-speed collision, barely a dent in the truck, but inside the Cadillac, something impossible happened. Everyone else walked away with scratches. Patton? He was thrown forward, his head hitting the glass partition. His neck was snapped. Why was that truck there? Why did the driver, Robert Thompson, disappear from the records shortly after? And here is the most chilling part. The official accident report? It vanished. The witnesses? Their stories changed within hours. If you were investigating this today, would you call it bad luck? Or would you notice that the man who wanted to start a war with Russia was silenced on the very day he prepared to go public? The last order was working. Patton was paralyzed. But he was still alive. For now. Patton was paralyzed, but he wasn't defeated. For 12 days in Hospital 124, the old blood and guts fought his final battle. The doctors were amazed. He was breathing on his own. He was talking. He was even joking about returning to the States to start a real fight. He told his wife, Beatrice, "I have a lot to say, and the world is going to listen." He never got the chance. On December 21st, just as he was preparing to be moved, Patton died. The cause? A sudden pulmonary embolism, a blood clot. In medicine, it happens. But in espionage, it's a classic. No autopsy was ever performed. No one questioned why the most important man in Europe was left unguarded. Think about the timing. If Patton had returned to Washington, he would have exposed the secret deals between Eisenhower and Stalin. He would have demanded a war that the world wasn't ready to fight. Was his death a medical tragedy? Or was it the final stage of the last order? Ask yourself, if you were a high-ranking official and you knew one man's words could trigger World War III, would you let that man speak? George Patton was buried in Luxembourg among his soldiers. Not in Arlington, not as a martyr, just as a soldier who knew too much. The last order was never found in the official archives. But history is written in blood, not just ink. Within years, everything Patton predicted came true. The Iron Curtain fell. The Cold War began. Millions died in proxy wars from Korea to Vietnam. Could Patton have stopped it? Or would his crusade against the East have turned the world into a nuclear wasteland? We will never know. Because on a cold December morning, a truck turned, a neck snapped, and a hero was silenced. History is often made by those who win, but it is changed by those who are removed. Was Patton a victim of fate, or the first casualty of the Cold War? The answer is buried with him. But one thing is certain. In the game of kings and generals, sometimes the greatest victory is making sure your own side loses its best weapon. What do you think? Was Patton's death an accident, or was it the only way to save the world from itself? Let us know in the comments.